I am here at KPMG because they came out with the 2019 Autonomous Vehicle Readiness Index. And that's, of course, one of the most important trends for the next 10 to 20 years. And we're going to first look at about which countries is best prepared. And then secondly, how did KPMG measure it? But we're first going to talk about why is it important and what are the advantages of autonomous driving vehicles. Look, you're the partner here in the Netherlands on automotive. What good will bring autonomous driving vehicles to society? What are the main reasons?
Well, the main reasons, I think, it's to decrease the number of casualties in traffic. I mean, if you drive all autonomously, then I think, and we all believe that it's much safer on the roads.
You say in the report 80% less, 1.5 million people die every year, and that will be reduced by 20%. Okay. 80%. 80%. So 20% will be left. Yeah. Second, what is even more important, except for these lives, which of course are really important?
It's a combination of autonomous vehicles and electrification. So in the end, we end up with a smaller car park, cleaner cars, and much more accessible cities and less cars in the city. Yeah.
Okay, so no parking spots anymore, which is 20% of the cities nowadays.
Yeah. If you no, at least 20%, and if you can use that park spot for alternative, like say green parks or housing or. That's
much more density, huge amount of work for project developers and for the city. Okay, and then also, I mean, we use our cars pretty shitty, right? How much percent of the cars, how much percentage of the time do we use our cars?
I think only maybe 5% per day. Yeah.
And the moment that we have autonomous driving vehicles, they will work a little bit harder. They maybe do 20%.
Yeah.
And so, what percentage of how many cars do we still need when this revolution is done?
Well, it really depends. If you're in the city or if you're outside the city. Holland is a country which has multiple sites. I believe if you live in Amsterdam or in Rotterdam, you probably won't need a car. But if you live in the countryside, in Gelderland, Friesland, Groningen, you need at least a car to travel a lot.
Maybe you don't need two cars, but you need one car. And I think they say it's about 75% less cars overall. Huh?
Well, I don't know if that's a prediction, but I'm not sure about that number.
Okay, but I mean, we have smart cities. We don't have car ownerships anymore. We'll have a lot less cars, and they will kill less people, and they will give a high level of services. Now, first thing. Which country is the best, is totally ready for autonomous driving? What is the best, what's number one?
Well, number one, it's not a surprise. For us, it's not a surprise. That's the Netherlands.
Okay, look at this list. The Netherlands is number one. And last year it was also a number one. Why?
Well, there are a number of things why we are top one. That's first of all, we have excellent roads. Second, we have a high density of electric poles, charging poles. Thirdly, we have a government who's really stimulating positive legislation on pilots, on driving autonomous vehicles on our roads. And that are the main three items.
Which we're good in implementing things. So what about the industry? We have TomTom. What industries do we have here which can help with autonomous?
Well, we have a huge research centers in Eindhoven.
Yeah. What about our industry? How good are we with our industry?
I think we are very innovative. If you look at the southern part of a country in Eindhoven or Helmond, where we have the automotive campus, we have lots of initiatives which are investing in new energy, autonomous vehicles, but not as much as other countries.
Not as the Germans next door. But autonomous driving is more like Israel, right? I mean, and China and Tesla.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the technology needed for autonomous driving, we need lots of smart AI, we need fast computers, we need a lot of smart software, and we have TomTom with smart software. I hope that they will go into autonomous driving software, because until now they want to make maps only for it. I think it's a little bit... they're not too aggressive in that thing. But I mean, we also have chip manufacturers, right, which are in the car industry.
Well, NXP, for example, it's a huge and a beautiful company here in Holland, which really serves the automotive industry. We also have Bosch. It's a German company, but we have Bosch here in the Netherlands.
Okay, they do research here.
Yeah, yes, of course. So our country has a good platform for innovative industries in automotive.
Okay. Does your report also tell about how fast these developments will come? We are number one, but I mean, you don't see one autonomous car driving here. We have a little bit of experiments it's not. There's really not much. Everything happens in Israel, and everything happens in California or in China.
Well, there's not a trend in here, or how do you say it? Prediction. But if you look at it from our side, KPMG thinks that it first starts within the truck industry and not per se from passenger cars.
Oh, yeah, you have something. You said something in the report about.
Yeah, on truck platooning. Holland is working closely together with Belgium and Germany to do pilots on the highways to see if trucks can drive autonomously with one driver in front of the truck platoon, and all the other vehicles are connected and drive in the night through Antwerp.
We're going to be number 1, Rotterdam Harbor. But there's another big harbor somewhere, and that is Singapore. They're number 2. And if you look at if you can make it happen, autonomous driving in Singapore, it's a crazy city. 6-7 million people with a huge amount of car, way too much. And they are number 2 on Autonomous Driving Index. They're really experimenting with it.
No, I think what's the main reason why Singapore is on the 2nd place has to do with legislation. Yeah. The innovative industry and the investments, they are really attractive to other companies. They have huge amount of money. Yeah. So it's the richest country of the world. Yeah. So they can.
If you can make it work there, because parking spots and too much car is a real problem there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So it's really interesting. I heard from Mobileye, one of the suppliers of technology. They say we test in Israel. Of course, they're from Israel. If we can do it in Israel, people are so mean and nasty in driving. We can do it everywhere. Same with Singapore, I think. Okay, let's go dive a little bit deeper, because there's 5 different things on this report. Why people are in front. Why countries are number 1. Let's look a little bit at the detail. So with Stijn, I'm going to talk about what makes the Netherlands number 1 and what are the different aspects of it. And then we're going to look at all the countries next to each other in a graph. Okay, the Netherlands. Let me see here. We have here electric vehicle charging stations. We have a lot of them.
Yeah, and as the Netherlands is a pretty small country, we are doing pretty well in this index. Yeah.
And then we have consumer adoption. So we're doing pretty well. Is that because of taxation, or do the Dutch people love electric?
So this index is based on, in general, how the Dutch people are looking at new technologies, and based on the World Economic Forum index, it turns out
we are number 1. And Sweden, United States, United Kingdom, Singapore. Okay, but the differences are also not very big. Okay, so and then we have policy and legislation. We're number 5. Technology and innovation, we're number 10. Infrastructure, we already said it was number 1, and consumer acceptance number 2. So policy and legislation, we're number 5. We're okay.
We are in the top 5, so I think that's good.
What are we not doing which would make us number 1 in this arena? Because I think it was Singapore was number 1. What kind of legislation? Or they may say they have very brutal payments you have to make, or you cannot buy a car or something like that if you don't have a specific if you don't buy a specific car with specific specs.
I don't know why they.
Okay, so we're gonna look at Singapore for a second. So Singapore, look at that, 6 million people. They're number 1 on policy. They're number 15 on technology. They don't have a lot of companies. Number 2 on infrastructure, and consumer acceptance number 1. Why? What are they doing in policy that's so great?
So I think you see in Singapore the government is playing a really active role in making these EVs possible in Singapore. For example, by investing in a center of expertise, making policies in place, and also investing in traffic lights and smart road beacons.
Okay. So let's see how that compares to the rest of the world. So here you see the world. Number 1 Singapore, United Kingdom. Number 5 Netherlands. And then we go slowly down, and you see South Korea is still very enthusiastic with 5.71, but then it drops down. Czech Republic, Israel. That's pretty amazing, because Israel has huge amount of technology. And number 1 is number 1, and the lowest side is Brazil. So that is the policy. Let's look at infrastructure. So as a Dutchman, I think that's really cool. Number 1 is Netherlands, 7.72. That's more than a point more than number 2 Singapore. And then you see that United Arab Emirates is still up there. And the latest is again Brazil, Russia, India, Mexico, and Israel again. So I'm really amazed because Israel must be number one with technology. And yes, here we have Pillar 2, aggregated scores for technology and innovation. And there's companies like Mobileye which are active there, but Israel is definitely number one. Amazing. Norway number 2, and United States number 3. Germany, Japan, and poor us, the Netherlands are in position number 8. Not really high. We have more supplying technology. We have TomTom, which is into autonomous driving. We have a chip manufacturer, NXP, but we don't have real hardcore stuff like Israel, which really shows the way. But I have to investigate what's happening in Norway, because they're having a lot of technology and innovation useful for autonomous driving cars. Consumer acceptance, and that is we're number 2 there, Singapore. And I think this just follows all the other ones. If there's good experiments, if there's good technology, if the government is enthusiastic, you know, a couple of years later, the consumers will follow. So if you look at this, the infrastructure and the policies, is this a good environment for the autonomous driving vehicles? Will it develop on this number of infrastructures? Will it thrive?
I think it's a good way to look at it if you take 4 elements into account. So it's not only the car being ready. I think what's really important to keep in mind, it's both making sure the infrastructure is in place. An autonomous car needs a kind of infrastructure to make sure that it's not collapsing towards the wall or mixed in other kinds of traffic. Bicycles and people who walk on the street. I think that's
the Dutch are really good for trying it out. If you can get it ready in Israel or in Amsterdam, it will work everywhere. What's your personal take of it? I mean, how long before a autonomous driving vehicle will drive through Amsterdam? 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years?
So I think you as a Tesla enthusiastic, you know that it's already possible to have a certain level of autonomy in your car.
Yeah, on the highway, no brainer.
And I think it depends on the brand of your car, how good the system is. I think it will last for a couple of years, and maybe more than 10 years, when level 5 autonomous cars are really are in the city center. Mixed with other kinds of traffic.
More than 10 years, but less than 20?
Certain levels of autonomy will definitely come very soon in our normal daily cars. I think in the beginning as an assistance, and later on maybe, and maybe within 20 years, these kind of developments will go exponentially. Will bring us also completely autonomous to our destination.
That's what we're waiting for. Really, the moment that we have complete autonomous driving vehicles, we can take and get rid of the parking spots inside the city. Extremely important real estate. We can have a very small fleet. We need 4 times less people. To give you an idea, we have 8.5 million cars in the Netherlands. But on Monday morning, on the busiest day of the week, at 8 o'clock in the morning, at the busiest time, only 700,000 cars are driving from that 8.5 million. So it's really only 6-7% is driving, because everybody only drives 15-20 minutes. And with 2.5 million cars in the Netherlands, we could basically get everybody from A to B, not worrying about parking, and at a much lower cost. That's the kind of vision which will happen in the future. And it's interesting to have a report on how ready a country is. It can be downloaded for free. Look at kpmg.com.nl. And there will be links to it. So that's it for this year. We'll see next year what will bring if the Netherlands are still number 1, and how your country is doing.